there was a point in my life when, certain parts of my body were out of proportion
Which part?
and people.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of
Let's talk about
it. Yes. Thank you for joining us today. As usual, you have me, Chrissy.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Kadz.
So our topic for today is, does size matter in the workplace?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, when we think about size, of course, our mind automatically goes to something else. But also in the corporate world, I think of size as a plus size person who walks around in all her glory. I also think about like size in the workplace because I'm not sure how things have evolved, but even when I was like in high school, there were certain jobs that you had to be slim for, you had to be light skinned for. And I know that time has changed somewhat, but we're gonna go down in it. And Kadeem is an HR boss in Jamaica. So
Yes.
we're so happy
Mr.
to have you
HR.
today. And Vince
Thank you
also
for having
hires
me.
and interviews people at times too. And
Don't mix me.
gets hired. So we are gonna open a them business.
I'm so happy that you clarified. We're talking about, does size matter in the workplace? You mentioned, Chrissy, your physical appearance.
Yes.
That's what we're getting into. And as you said, back in the day, I think we have evolved somewhat. Size really did matter in some corporate spaces. For some jobs, yes, it does matter. So we need to talk about the different types of jobs and why size matters in those various jobs.
Yes. Vince.
But I think it still matters for some jobs because if you're a certain weight or above a certain weight, you can't join the police force or the army. They'll tell you that you have to lose weight before you can be recruited.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes with like the physical requirements of your job.
Of the
right?
job, correct.
Sure.
But then I think so that's something different now, where there are specific requirements for a particular job. But there are some jobs that don't necessarily have a physical requirement, but
Right.
some people still put, some restriction on your appearance for you to be successful in that job.
May I go load up the thing a little bit? Come in a business. But for example,
Me business.
I remember that's a show. No, I lie. My business. I'm afraid of business. But I was saying, like, for example, in the bank, I remember in high school going to the bank and seeing a plus size bank employee. And I was like, oh my God. And she had like her hair well done. Them wear them little suit and the little collar tie up thing. And, I've always been plus size even as a kid. And I remember it. So the fact that I remember it is something that stands out, which said to me that wasn't the norm. You know what I'm saying? And so when we think a police are joining the JDF, the army, whatever, or the FBI or Canadian police, whatever it is, of course that there's that physical requirement, right? You have to go run down people sometime, all of them little something there, you have to faith, you have to have the stamina. But then when I think of a bank employee or a teacher, certain things, certain jobs or occupation, you don't necessarily need that. But I think there's an automatic bias, no?
It does exist. But I can say, as an HR professional, I eliminate as much of that bias as possible, because especially the industry that I currently work in, that's definitely not something that I pay attention to in detail because it's not a requirement. What you will do is speak about, there are some of the jobs in hospitality that require some physical endurance and strength. And you'll highlight that to the candidate to make sure that they are capable of those requirements. But generally speaking, you hire for talent and experience and attitude and those things, not how you look physically.
But you know, when I talk about size, you know, there's the size, which I guess you can be underweight or you can be overweight. But you know, something that just came to me just now was age bias as well.
Yes.
In my area, it's, I wouldn't call it a bias, but after interacting with some other clients, I'll see that they have particular biases. And in order to ensure that whatever service I'm offering is successful, I have to be careful of the person I choose to do the intervention. So I have to be mindful if the client says something particular, like they don't like this type of person, or you know, they're drawn to this type of person, to prevent any type of arguments to say that, you know, the process wasn't fair. I have to look at all of that. So I really do have to take into consideration physical attributes, which is not something that, you know, I would do on a normal basis, but it's based on what the clients might have said. And it's not all the time that I document it, but it's just for me to know that, all right, then this is something that, oh, I can't choose this person to do this because this particular client will have an issue with them or will be too drawn to them.
Too drawn to them. But when you're hiring, do you also think of that? Or looking at prospective people?
I try not to, because I mean, I need a pool of people and I can't have everybody looking the same way. I try not to, so it's always better when I have somebody else with me who may have another bias that's not necessarily in terms of size or looks or anything like that. So, I mean, I guess that's why we have interview panels and not just one person doing something.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense, to keep it a little less subjective. But I always feel like that people have them biases, you know, no matter how we try to balance it out. Even like sometimes when I hear situations or my friends or somebody telling me a story, I try to play devil's advocate because I'm like, I automatically know I'm going to be biased. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I have to do it like deliberately.
So sometimes, as I said, you have to deliberately ignore your bias because you know that your particular bias has no bearing on whether a person would be successful in a job or not. Naturally, as human beings, we have our preferences to how persons look. And sometimes you have to just ignore your personal preferences. Not sometimes, as much as possible, you have to ignore your personal preferences, especially as an HR professional, and look at what the person brings to the table, look at what the job requirements are, and ensure that that's what you're looking at. If you're looking for somebody who has a bubbly personality, a lovely smile, because they're going to be facing guests, then you have to ensure that that's what you look for. They speak well, and not necessarily the person's size in terms of their body, whether they are a medium, large, extra large, or a size 0.
Let me ask you something. You ever date somebody who was extra large?
Go again?
You ever date somebody who was extra large?
Not extra large.
Actually, I did once, yes.
Yourself is not included, Vince.
No. And I was gonna say I'm not extra large, but
no. When I think about that, right? Let's say you're hiring somebody, aren't you automatically hiring somebody who's not necessarily, I want to say your size, but that sounds weird. It's someone who you find.
No, not all the time. Not all the time. Not all the time.
Oh, but sometimes.
But let me tell you, hold on, let me tell you the truth. Sometimes I will interview a candidate and I find the person attractive, and me have to drop on myself and say, hold on, but you really don't meet the requirements for the work. So you technically, we cannot give you a tick to move forward. So I kind of drop at myself and say, all right, no, that's not what we're looking for, Kadeem. We're looking for other things, not physical appearance.
Okay, not just that.
Right. Yeah. So it's an active session for me when I'm interviewing a person to deliberately, put away my biases and look at the resume, the application based on the questions that I ask, whether situational or otherwise, and determine if the person is a good fit for the environment, for the department that they're applying for, various things.
Okay. I have a question for you though. When in your scenario or in your situation, right? How many people do an interview?
But it depends.
Like, is it like you and the head of that department or?
Yeah, so it can be, it's always, unless the person is interviewing for to work directly with me.
Okay.
It probably would be me alone, because I'm the hiring manager for the department.
Right.
But usually it's HR and the head of department. That's the standard. There are some positions which require more than that, but standard is usually 2. Whether the person is interviewed by recruitment or HR first and then recommended to move forward to the next interview, or both HR and the head of department does the interview at the same time.
Okay. I just wanted to see how transparent is the process and whether it's just one person picking that one person that they see fit, or find them physically attractive or physically suitable for the role.
What's the highest number of persons on a panel? You said maybe 2 persons, but what's the highest number?
It really depends on the position.
What's the highest one you've ever been a part of, like in your HR journey altogether? 4.
Oh, in my HR journey altogether or my current role?
Altogether.
Maybe 5. I think 5.
Lad, that's intimidating.
Yeah. I've personally been a part of interviews with, I did an interview once with 7 persons on the panel.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. Jeez,
7 persons, yeah.
That sounds like a lot. Look here, I've got one episode where you're telling people them off the man over the world of interviewing. And
that's true. Yes, we need to do that for you.
Yes.
But let me share something with you quickly.
Sure.
Research shows that good looks are beneficial for both men and women.
Of course.
Research. So
leave it.
It's not just I don't think it's just a corporate thing or a Jamaican thing. Attractive people get unfair advantages and stress on unfair advantages. What you say, Vincent?
Pretty privilege.
Pretty privilege, yes.
Wow.
Yes. But it's interesting because you sometimes have pretty duns. Pretty people that are not capable, they're not, they don't really have the ability to carry out the job. By the way, when we say pretty, this is not gender biased. Pretty don't necessarily mean right. It's not just generalizing. When we say pretty, male
good
and
looking.
female, good looking,
sure.
right. And good looking is very subjective,
Right.
So I guess if you have a very subjective recruitment
that's the
process,
thing that I was thinking of, when we say good looking people or attractive people get unfair advantages, because then
look good to you might don't look good to me.
Exactly.
Vincent might like a chunkier person. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, though. But thanks for clarifying. Thanks for clarifying, Vincent. And other persons might like somebody who is on the slimmer side, the lighter complexion. And then if you have those, that disparity in terms of in the recruitment process, you might have a challenge, because if we allow those biases to, take over the process, then if, for example, if we have Vincent up on a panel and Vincent like somebody, I mean, like the person, it might be a, tug of war in terms of the selection process.
But that also forces you to look at other things too, right?
Correct. It would definitely lead us to eliminate the bias and say, okay, is this person really capable or suitable or qualified for the job?
But I think the most important thing coming from this is that sometimes people will say, I'm not biased, but we have to be aware of our biases in order to not necessarily fix them, but to work on them. You know what I mean?
Yes. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I was saying that we all have biases. We need to be aware of our biases. We can't say that we don't. We can't say that we're not biased or we don't have a particular bias.
Exactly. I think to be a professional, and I think I've been an HR practitioner for long enough, to be able to identify when my biases are creeping in, and then to take a step back, to eliminate that bias, or to, take an objective view. I've worked in spaces, in places that there are overt biases, like, you hear me talk about pretty dance before? And people go ahead and select these individuals because them of a particular build. I'm not saying that it goes both ways. Slim and pretty, and the plus size, because people have their preferences, and I've seen it go both ways. I've seen also, those are female biases, but I've seen managers select male candidates because them have a nice smile, because them tall, dark, and handsome.
Sure.
Me short, dark, and handsome, but but seriously, the biases in workplaces are so serious, and as an HR professional, you have to be so strong to ensure that, because, for example, as the recruitment manager, the talent acquisition manager, when somebody's selected and they're not the right fit, and in 2-3 months they leave, what if we go try to find back the replacement?
You.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay. So for even that sake, for my sake, I have to make sure that from the get-go, the right selection is made, and it's not based on an individual's bias, because it's going to lead right back to me to find a replacement if that person doesn't work out. Sometimes when I see it happen, I just have to cross my fingers and my toes and me eye them and pray say the person work out, right? Because some serious biases can cripple our decisions.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. So we're not just cuckoo out here saying their biases in certain corporate areas. You know what I'm saying?
We didn't talk about outside of corporate world though. You mentioned a scenario with the bank, and I spoke about my scenario with hospitality. Vincent spoke about his work environment. But what about the non-corporate spaces? Naturally, well, I don't want to say, well, yes, it's natural because that's what exists. That's the culture. Models. When we look at, let's divert a little bit to beauty pageants. And what people look for in those arenas. Right. I think the culture that we have embraced as a people is that beauty is based on your physical appearance.
Listen,
you can
not just in corporate.
Right. One of my most memorable university experiences was when I actually applied for Miss UE one year. So I went to the interview, and as soon as I walked through the door, the eyes were piercing. right? Because they're like,
That's the way you go.
like
What do you
you're
think, yeah?
really, you're
Like-
really take yourself and come in here.
no, you're coming in the wrong room. It's the next door down, miss.
The gym is over there,
This
miss.
room.
Right. And I was like, I walked in there all confident and everything ready to do it. And in high school, that would have shattered me. It was so obvious, right? A lot of people aren't ready to like challenge that.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot
The
of people
status quo.
to
Yes.
change the status quo, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was very memorable for me. Up till this day, I still remember. I try to remember people them panny. I should remember that.
Wow.
Vincent, you are of the three of us, you are the smallest. Have you ever felt yes, we're talking about size. We're talking about size. You are the smallest. Vincent, have you ever experienced any sort of discrimination, anything at all? Because while we're talking about size physically, but your complexion, you're on the darker side of complexions. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I mean, yeah, so I've been told, oh, you're Magai, or sometimes it's not necessarily negative, but some people look at me and say, oh, you have the perfect body type to start working out. I've never had an issue as it relates to my complexion, or I've just disregarded it. So, but people have told me that I'm too slim. There was a point in my life when, you know, certain parts of my body were out of proportion.
Which part?
And people would always compliment on it. No, not my head.
He has grown into his big head.
Which was my head. It's usually your maga, or you need to put on a little more weight, or yeah, you should do bodybuilding because you have the perfect body for that. So
as you mentioned, Marga Vincent, I remember once we were, not in my current role, we were hiring for a particular, so this is on the other end of the spectrum now. We were hiring for a particular position, and the persons who were interviewing with me commented on a gentleman's stature, his physique, and say, "To Marga, you know, saying you look feeble, like breeze will blow him away." And I'm like, did you really just say that? Granted, the man was of a very slender build, for real.
Right.
But I didn't think that mattered because the person was experienced in the area. The role did require physical stamina and endurance, but I didn't think that how he looked really would have impacted his work, because I not think like he got very slim overnight and came to the interview. If he has been doing this for a while, it means that his resume reflected that he was successful at his job, and how him look now, I have nothing to do with it, and there was no known illness which would have prevented him from doing the job. So I don't think that. So that was just one experience, and I thought it was quite a
What about personally? Have you ever had one of those, like, you know, 5 more inches?
No, actually, I've never had an experience where my height or my weight, not to my knowledge, where it prevented me or hindered me from getting a job. I don't know of it. Nobody has ever commented, you know, openly to me about it.
But I mean, it probably has happened, but because they have to remain professional, they can't say it to you, they might say it to the colleagues.
Right.
Just like how you would have said it to you, they're not going to say it to the man in front of him.
Correct. But some people are professional like that, but anyway. Yeah.
Well, I think that comes to the end of the episode, Kadeem. Is it?
I believe so. I have nothing more to say.
Oh my God. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We'd love to address them and interact with you guys. So remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Ding.
Ding.
And before we go any further, Kadeem, what's our Jamaican proverb today?
All right, our proverb for today is pretty rose got McAfee jukio.
Ooh, I like it.
Pretty rose got McAfee jukio.
That's
So
right.
it just means that somebody can be physically appealing, but there are some flaws, there are some drawbacks, that we have to be careful of. They
That's
can be
right.
hidden, thorns hidden amongst the roses.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yep.
Vince just get it.
From you, we look forward to seeing you when the next episode drops. It comes out
Yes.
every Sunday at 11 a.m. So we'll catch you on the next one.
What good?
One love, big up on yourself. Bye.